And we are back, ladies and gentlemen, live on the Philippe Matthews Show after hours, because this topic is after hours. It's amazing. This woman is amazing. This is going to be a show that will change your life. Born and raised in the nation's capital, Washington, D.C., M.R. Johnson is the author of Mary Pumpkin's Memoirs of an Addict, Fact or Fiction, the extraordinary book and workbook of hope and survival from addiction, mental health, and co-occurring disorders, which we're going to really be talking about, and suicide. It's an inspired story by M.R. Johnson, and I am so blessed and honored to have her with me today. How are you, my dear?
Hello, Philippe. I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Oh, I'm so honored. Let me tell you, this is, so the people can see it, this book here, ladies and gentlemen, do not, the moment you read it, the first page, you're not going to be able to put it down. It is so compelling. It is amazing story. So don't do nothing when you start reading this book. Don't have a plan like, oh, I gotta, let me just pick up the book and just get a little scan. You're not going to be able to scan it because you're going to get
No.
glued. So what's going to happen is you're going to end up, missing picking up your kids from school or something. You'll miss your shows. You won't be able to see Empire. You got to stop, get a coffee or whatever your drink is, sit down, read this book from cover to cover, because I have never read a memoir that is so amazing and so enthralling. It was just, it was like I was there with you,
Yeah.
going through each phase of your life. How long
Yes.
did it take you to write this?
Well, it took about 5 years to write the book altogether. I went through several changes. I had went into a psychiatric inpatient ward
Mhm.
and an outpatient ward, and then when I finished the drug rehabilitation program, I was hearing stories of people saying, wow, no one is listening to what we're saying. And within that, I said, okay, it's time for me to write a book to change the
Mm.
stigma and shame
Mhm.
concerning addiction, mental health, and suicide. So
Well,
about 5 years.
5 years. Wow. There's a lot now of talk in the media about mental illness, and it is serious.
Yes.
It's not something where you turn your head. It's happening across the nation. I think more with us
Hmm.
African Americans than anyone, because of what Dr. Joy DeGruy calls post-traumatic slave syndrome, that intergenerational injury that we have never been able to recover from. We're born into this racial stress.
Yes.
And we don't have language for it because we're born into it. It's like being born into a war zone, and you just have to figure out what normal is. But there is no such thing really as normal,
No, it's
especially
not.
if you're African American. Now, you write about that 8.9 million American adults have co-occurring disorders. 7.4% of individuals receive treatment for both conditions, while 55.8% receive no treatment at all. What is a co-occurring disorder?
A co-occurring disorder is when a person has more than one behavior health disorder, such as addiction and mental health, addiction and depression, or anxiety and alcohol and drugs. But
Okay.
I wanted to share also with you, there is also 600,000 people that are homeless and they have co-occurring disorders with
Mhm.
um, 43% of our youth who receive mental health services in America, Philippe, they have co-occurring disorders and they are not even aware. So people who are diagnosed with schizophrenia, many of them use drugs and alcohol as a way to cope or soothe their
Quiet the
those
voices.
disorders. Yes, and to quiet the voices.
Hmm.
Yes. And people with bipolar disorders are not even aware that they're using drugs and alcohol as another means to cope
It
and
becomes almost an
control.
automatic response in a sense, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's
Yes.
not that I'm going out to become a. Like, I was on doing a show the other day, and just talking to somebody. Nobody goes up to their mom and dad and say, "Mom, Dad, when I grow up, I want to become an alcoholic, a drug addict
Exactly.
person." It's not a goal. It's something that actually happens to fill in a blank, or to numb a pain, or to try
Because
to feel normal.
Exactly. And no one wants to say, hey, I'm an addict. And
Right.
no one wants to be called crazy. But
Right.
one thing that I found in keeping it real with myself and keeping my recovery together is that, hey, first and foremost, Philippe, I'm an addict.
Mm-hmm.
Wrong, right, or indifferent, I will always be an addict. I have what makes mine different is that I suffer from depression.
Mm-hmm.
And what I tell people as I'm speaking now, um, okay, you can become healed from your addiction or recover from your mental health disorders, but what do you replace that addiction with?
Nice.
A lot of people who, like when they first hear the name of the book, Memoirs of an Addict, Fact or Fiction, the first thing that they think of is drugs and alcohol.
Right.
So what I want to address with my book is to let them know, no, there are people who have gambling addiction, food
That's right.
addiction, hoarders, and my sons, and I love them dearly. They love that PlayStation. I mean, what is that, Xbox? They can be just as addicted to
It
it
is.
as
It's an actual.
well.
Absolutely, it
So
is.
let's talk about addiction as a whole and stop looking at it as, okay, as soon as you hear the word addict, automatically people think drugs and alcohol.
Right. Or yeah, and substance abuse.
And
Um,
substance abuse,
yeah,
yes.
and it's not.
Because we got
Mental disorders.
prescription drugs also.
Well, mental disorders precede all other disorders because there's more mental disorders than there are substance abuse and drug and alcohol because it all starts in the mind.
Yes.
So let's talk about that. You know, when we understand now the what co-occurring disorder is, do you think? You know, we recently lost Robin Williams.
Hmm.
Do you think that that was one of the things that he was going through
Yes, I do.
in his life that unfortunately ended up taking his life?
Well, you know what? Robin Williams is a point of focus for me. So I've done some research on Robin Williams, and what I have come to believe is that Robin Williams suffered with the depression, and you know, he used to use drugs back in the
Hmm.
day.
Hmm.
So now let's also use the actor Philip Seymour Hoffman, who had been clean for
Hmm.
20 years. Okay. Um, when you suffer from a mental health disorder, because there is no cure, you're going to constantly have a battle within yourself. I'm going to speak for myself, dealing with depression. Okay, it's many days I feel great, but a lot of times depression has a way of taking over. So what
Hmm.
I have come to grow in my recovery is, okay, if I don't want to deal with the depression, don't go to the drugs. Figure out another means. And you
Hmm.
can have everything, Philippe. Robin Williams had everything going for him. But
Hmm.
when you are hurting inside, and see,
Hmm.
that's what a lot of behavior health disorders come from, guilt, trauma, low self esteem, some of those emotions. It's hard to deal with those by yourself. My thing is therapy. I am an advocate for one-on-one therapy. I think more money needs to be invested in therapy and group therapy. So when I was writing this book, my main thing was, well, how can this message of hope spread to other people? So
Hmm.
as you can tell in the book, it has a workbook in the back. The
Hmm.
workbook can be used for staff development, and it can be used to facilitate groups, because a lot of people that I found when I was in the psychiatric inpatient ward and outpatient ward and drug rehabilitation program, they have book knowledge, but they don't know, if you've never used drugs or if you've never experienced depression, how can you tell me how to get healed?
You
So
don't know
in this
the
book,
you don't know the conversation, you don't know the language, and you don't know the nuances.
no, you do not. And you do. A lot of people, clinical people who don't have those issues, can't empathize.
Right.
And this is one thing, being a certified peer specialist here in Washington, D.C. My job as a certified peer specialist is to share my personal experience along with clinical experience so that people who are going through what I've been through, they'll be better and able to share their stories.
Hmm.
And I can say, hey, well, I'm not going to tell you how to go get help, but I can tell you what worked for me and what's
Hmm.
how my recovery is happening.
What I find very informative is letting people know that when we're talking about people like Philip Seymour Hoffman,
Yes.
Robin Williams, and a lot of entertainers that we have seen, and athletes, and what have you, that it's not something that goes away.
No, it doesn't.
It's something that you cope with and deal with. Now, you
Every
might
day.
stop drinking, you might stop whatever the the gestural activity is that you're involved in, that you're using to numb and subside the mental part of it. But the mental part never goes away.
No, it doesn't. I deal with depression every day. From losing my mother and father, no one can tell you how to deal with death.
No,
And
absolutely not. How old were you when your parents
I was
passed?
38 years old when my father passed away, and he was only 57. And I was 39 when my mom passed, and she was only 55. And
Wow.
they were the matriarchs, besides my grandmother. The three of them were the matriarchs of the family. So
Mm,
when they passed away, it was like Humpty Dumpty. How do you put us back together again?
sure,
So,
sure.
and then you deal with that part of the depression part, because when you are surrounded by love, my mom and dad and anyone who was able to be in their lives knew that was real love. They were married for
Hmm.
almost 40 years, and they believed in
And
the
they
black
were babies
family.
when they met and got pregnant. I mean,
Yes, daddy
15 and
was,
17. Is that
that's
right?
it.
Your mom was 15 and
Yes,
your father was 17.
yes, and she was pregnant with me. And
Wow.
I have to say this because I love my mother and father so much. My dad told my mom, he said, Miss P, called her Miss P. He said, Miss P, right now, I'm only able to give you hot dog and beans, but one day I'll be able to buy you steak. And,
Wow.
that was love. That was love.
That's, yeah, man. That's good.
Yeah.
And, here's the thing I want to also let people know is that you came from a two-parent home.
Yes, I did.
And so it wasn't discord in the home. This is something that perhaps was born in you,
Hmm.
passed intergenerationally, because your mom obviously was under stress at 15,
15.
having a child and
Two
having
babies. My
two
brother.
babies.
Yes.
Holy cow. Yeah, that's trauma. So that can be a part of it. I want to go back though,
Hmm.
because this, I talk to you for like hours and hours and hours. So, but I want to set the pace of it, for the people, because we understand co-occurring disorders.
Yes.
I want to talk about when this started. Literally from the time that you can remember. You were depressed. You would cry all the time.
Hmm.
In the book, you talk about getting on your mom's nerves for crying all the time, but you also was always thinking about killing yourself.
Yes. As a little girl, I always
How
thought
did
that,
you even know what that was?
I don't
That's
know.
the
You
fascinating
know
part.
what?
You know what I'm
Honestly,
saying?
Philippe, the thing is, um, I'm going to say this. The devil knew I had a mission.
Mm, mm,
So when
mm-hmm,
you have entities, and people have to understand, there is a thing called good and evil. And
mm-hmm,
when you have a purpose, a lot of people who suffer with suicidal ideation, they have a purpose. I was always destined to be someone. So, being that I saw things before my time as a little
mm-hmm,
girl, I was
mm-hmm,
always told I was a troublemaker. Not until I started getting one-on-one therapy, my therapist told me, she said, no, you weren't a troublemaker, you were a truth sayer. So, by me
mm.
telling the truth all the time and being told I was nothing but a troublemaker, I was like, okay, well, forget it. I'm gonna go ahead and just get rid of myself. And I thought death would be the way out.
Wow. You and I mean, when I say you were young, you were a baby when
I
this
was
was.
8 years old.
You were 8 years old.
That,
You
that I remember.
you had a doll. Well, even before you had a doll, there was a what was it? The Wide Brick Road. You had an
Yes.
imaginary friend. It started with that.
Yes. Me,
And this is when
myself, and I.
me, myself, and I, and you would have conversations. I mean, real
Real
conversations
conversations.
with me, myself, and I.
Hmm.
And give us a preview of that before we go into the next phase.
Well, my imaginary friend was someone that I could talk to, but because he wasn't a visible person, I would walk we lived in Southwest, down by the waterfront, beautiful neighborhood. And I would walk down there so I could freely talk to this person, to cry, or to just have someone who would understand me without being judgmental. Even though I had siblings and cousins and family that were older than me, when going back to when you see things and people are like, I know that curtain over there is yellow. It looks yellow from this side, but you're trying to tell me that it's white, but I know it's yellow.
Right.
So then you make me feel like, okay, well, you're a little crazy here. You don't know what you're talking about. So to avoid that, I had my imaginary friend until Susie came along.
It's Susie. Susie was almost like a life-size doll that was almost your size at the time.
Yes.
And Susie was the go-to
my
girl,
best
right?
friend. That was my girl. I love Susie. And that's why I included her in the book and a picture of her as well. Because my daddy, I got her for Christmas, and I would always hear my mother say, "Stop talking to yourself. Stop talking to yourself." So to avoid that, my dad, and my mom too, but daddy was the one who whispered in my ear and told me, now I didn't have to talk to an imaginary friend. He bought a doll baby so that I could have someone that I could talk to. And she was my best friend. She was my best friend. But you know what, Philippe, I want to go back to the African American and having behavioral health issues of depression and addiction in the family. With the African American community, it was taboo for us to go seek professional help.
Right.
And my dad,
Jesus was the only thing you could do.
Right, Jesus.
What's wrong with that boy? You better take him to Jesus. Jesus will take that, whatever's crazy about that boy. You get him, he'll be all right. And that's the problem with us. That's us, though, right? Right?
Yes.
we didn't, and matter of fact, probably back then, we probably couldn't trust a lot of people in mental health anyway, because they wasn't really our friends.
No, but it's just like with the medication now. The
absolutely.
Medication. Now, I am an advocate for medication, but back then, my father knew, oh no, you're not going to stigmatize my child and put her talking to no psychiatrist, because it would have followed me all the way through high school. So having Susie was, I guess, a point of therapy for me.
Sure.
And I'm grateful to my father for that, and my mother.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of times my mother wanted to take me. I'm gonna tell you the truth, for real. I think she snuck me there one time, and I was too much for the therapist. And the therapist was like, "Don't bring her back."
What did you say? The therapist said she's certified. Yes. Okay. Bye.
Don't bring her back.
Don't bring her back. Go talk to Susie now.
Go talk to Susie.
Oh,
and
that's
Susie
too funny.
stayed with me for years. She was my best friend.
Absolutely. So now this is when you were in Southwest. Now there's a pivotal moment that happened, where your father and mother were getting ready to move, and said, now you had, during that time before the move, you had found marijuana.
Yes.
Right. And so you started doing that with a friend and your friends, whatever. And that was very soothing and cathartic for you. It was your gateway drug, if you will. Is that right?
Yes. And marijuana is the gateway drug. And that's why I stressed that in the book. That
now that's controversial, because a lot of people are saying, no, it's medicinal. It has all of these qualities and things of sort. That was not your experience at all. Is that right?
No. Marijuana for me actually calmed down those voices. I believe marijuana does have medicinal purposes. But for me, marijuana was the gateway for me to start using other drugs.
Okay. All right. So you were doing the weed. So you kind of had a nice little social structure.
Yes.
Right? You had your weed,
older structure.
Yeah, you had your weed, you had your Susie, everything was going good, and then all of a sudden, father comes in and says, and you think he's coming in to talk to you about catching you doing marijuana, or talking about doing weed or smoking weed.
Yes.
And it was actually to tell you two things. One, we're moving.
Yeah.
To Maryland, and two, you got to give up Susie.
That was one of the hardest things for me. Yeah. And by that time,
talk to me about that.
I done cut Susie hair. She bald head. I done painted her with fingernail polish. The girl was a
You
mess.
telling Susie, you telling your parents, I'll take better care
I
of her.
take care, better care. I'm like, don't take it. But look, Philippe, I had just finished smoking the weed and everything, right? So I'm thinking, Daddy coming in and say, girl, I done found you smoking weed, and no. And I'm trying to come down from the weed, and he telling me we had to move to Forestville, Maryland. And I'm like, okay. And I thought really he was going, you know, I was in trouble, but no, it wasn't that. It was a major change for my family to move to Maryland. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Susie had to go because I
And
was
Susie had to-
I was almost a teenager. I was 12, 13 at the time.
Those are hard years too.
Yeah.
Especially for change like that. So here you are now in Maryland, and you get introduced to a crowd, and they introduce you to what do you call it? You called it Love Boat?
Love Boat, PCP. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, why the hell do they call it Love Boat? Anyway.
Because you be love and floating.
Oh, okay. Well, there it is. All right.
Ain't sexually love, it's psycho love.
It's psycho love. Now,
it's psycho love.
I didn't know this, that PCP, I guess it was embalming fluid?
Yes.
And weed mixed together.
Mixed
Is that
together.
right?
Yes.
Unbelievable. So walk us through that phase of your life, being introduced to that. And you know, was it Chuck Brown? Bustin' Loose, right? That was the music of the time, right?
Yes.
Talk to me about going to the clubs and hanging out and with your friends, the older friends, doing PCP.
Yes. Well, at the time, marijuana, this is why I'm saying it's being a gateway drug. Marijuana was not getting me high like it used to. That sensation, it was like, oh, smoking the weed, I just wanted to sleep and eat. And it's more to life than sleeping and eating. So, yes, Chuck Brown had just started, and all of the go-go bands here in DC, Rassens, and all of them. And we used to have places where we could go. It was called the Black Hole or the Howard Theater. So in that particular environment, we just started smoking PCP. And PCP is a hallucinant type drug. And, you know, I guess it's kind of like the vibe with people. I'm not sure the name of that drug, where you just dancing all night long. And when we did the PCP, speaking for myself, when I did the PCP, it just put me on a higher level of reality.
Now, what's interesting that I'm hearing is, you know, from the marijuana, your body adjusted, your brain adjusted, and you needed a deeper high. That right there lets me is an indication that there's a mental disorder or something going on where there was a need.
Yes,
to go to the next level. Because I know a lot of people, as you have know, there are people who smoke weed, but that's as far as it goes.
That's as far as they go.
But if there's something else that's pushing you, then there's something else going on. While you were doing weed and PCP, were you still suicidal? Were you still, obviously you're still depressed?
Yes.
But were you as suicidal as you were as a child, or was it about the same?
Well, because I didn't have a place to fit in, and I want to also stress, I am the middle child of 3. So the middle child always have issues. And speaking for myself, I always had issues. I wasn't the oldest and I wasn't the baby. So where did I fit in? Now, I have 3 children myself. What I did was I told my middle child, he's the love child, so that he would have a place to fit in. I didn't have a place to fit in that I felt comfortable without being the troublemaker or the crybaby. So not having my identity, I still remain suicidal.
Okay.
And using the drugs was always a means for me to have a place to fit in.
Sure. Okay. Now, just a little deeper into the suicidal part. Was it that you were suicidal? Of course you were, but did you try it?
Several times.
Really?
Yes, several times. I have taken
as a child.
I've taken pills. I've cut myself. You know, I even felt like times of throwing myself in front of a car or a bus. And when we lived in Southwest, I wanted to jump over the water and everything. God has been good to me.
Wow. And I remember reading in the book that, uh, I guess it's fascinating how the brain and the mind uh, tries to self preserve and
Yes.
save life. And so your mind projected into Susie, projecting back to you, where Susie became like a lifesaver for you, talking you out of suicide
Right.
and ending your life.
Because in the book, I did say how Susie, I could cry to Susie, and would tell Susie, "Oh, I feel like dying today." And even though she was a doll baby and she didn't talk back to me, it was like her saying, "No, just hold on, don't cry.
Mhm,
It's gonna
mhm.
be okay." And yeah, yeah,
This is I am so honored by you, your authenticity, your honesty. Is a conversation that's is so necessary and needed. This is
yes,
going to help so many people, because there's so many people right now that are going through this right now
right now.
in real time. All right, so now we're freebasing and we're freebasing and we're dancing it up. We're trying to quell the depression. We're
Mhm.
trying to not kill ourselves. And you go home and you turn on the news, and there's a newscaster saying that it was almost like it was breaking news. It was almost like,
It was breaking news,
yeah, it was breaking
and it
news.
was actually Tom. It wasn't Tom Brokaw. It was one of the news anchors along that line of Tom Brokaw who broke
Okay,
this news on
okay.
ABC. I'll never forget it.
Was it Peter Jennings?
No, it wasn't Peter Jensen.
But Peter, I don't think was around at that time. I know what you're talking
No,
about.
because
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, but it was national
it was
news.
national news.
And what we're talking about, ladies and gentlemen, is when the newscasters came on. She writes, MR writes about this in the book, where they introduced crack cocaine to America.
Yes.
And this is a fascinating piece in the book because I have interviewed Freeway Ricky Ross, who introduced crack cocaine in America.
Okay.
And the whole process of how the government played a part and a role in that. And then also, if you ever read The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander, she'll tell you that they started doing a anti-drug campaign 2 years before crack cocaine was introduced into the community. And here you are watching the news, and it's almost like a light switch that happened. It's almost like going from one room to another room. You go back to your friends to do what you were doing, which is freebasing, and
Hmm.
there's no freebasing
Smoking the
room.
boat at the time. We were smoking the boat at the time.
Smoking the boat at the time, you go back and it's no longer there.
No, no weed, no, no PCP. You could people was even trying to put it on parsley flakes, and that wasn't working.
Unbelievable. Parsley flakes, really?
Parsley flakes, and those out there who watching this, they know what
You
I'm
know,
talking about.
this is not funny, ladies and
And
gentlemen.
it's not funny, but
We're not
it
making
was
fun of it.
gone.
It's just that when you are going through, when you are in the
Yes,
mental disorder, and then you look out and see what you're doing, that's some funny stuff. When you look back,
yes,
it's kind of like Richard Pryor when he was freebasing. He was like,
yes.
this is funny now, but it wasn't funny when I was on fire.
That's
Um,
right.
um, but no, so you went back, and everything was you crack, and that's when you tried it, and unfortunately, the rest is part of that history. Walk me through that
Right.
part.
Well, you know what? The amazing part is that day I was going to the Go-Go at the Howard Theater here in Washington, D.C. And my friends, I was expecting to party like that, like I normally do. And when
Sure.
they said that the people were looking for marijuana, if you had marijuana at that time, you would have been a millionaire. But it was like from night to day. After that newscaster, he said, because he used New York City at the time as the
Hmm.
example, how people were leaving from Wall Street, going into these abandoned buildings, and how people were smoking out of cans and anything that they could, and how crack cocaine was getting ready to change life. I was like, oh my God, I had just seen this on TV. So for me, how do you escape? when you're used to a certain type of escapism of getting
Mm-hmm.
high. The body was used to it. So when there's a plan, that the plan was get them weaned off of the marijuana, and let's introduce this demon, because crack cocaine became a demon in
Mm-hmm.
the African American community that broke a lot of families. Now, I must say,
Responsible for 2 million men, black and brown men incarcerated.
yes,
And where it was the only thing I've ever seen in our history where both the seller and the user were penalized.
yes, yes. And here in DC, we were uh, called the murder capital of the world. So and that was amazing. But everybody came to DC, Maryland, and Virginia. And if you look at DC now, it's not the same. And it makes you wonder, was it a plan all the time? My people are not here in DC like they used to be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know,
There's a lot of
the
research that
property
shows
taxes
that it
were
is, but
down and everything, and people were moving to Maryland,
yeah.
and my brothers and sisters, a lot of them are dead and gone. It's just amazing what that crack cocaine did, and I put that in chapter 2, Stories of the Dungeon, because I wanted people to know this drug came in like an atomic bomb,
Mm-hmm.
and it did a
Mm-hmm.
lot of damage.
Mm-hmm.
And I got caught in it. Unfortunately, I got.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
Mm-hmm.
Walk us through when did, because I know people are saying, wow, this is amazing, Philippe. Her story is amazing. But no, it gets more amazing. This is just the beginning. We just set
Yes.
this up. This is the preface, ladies and gentlemen. Because we thought we were going to just talk about the drug addiction and the mental.
No.
No. Now we're going to the next phase of this. Was when I don't know, would you call it bipolar disorder or would you call it multiple personality disorder? But Mary created another person named Pumpkin. When did Pumpkin and how did Pumpkin manifest herself?
Okay, and this it was diagnosed as a dual personality.
Dual personality. Thank
Dual
you.
personality. What happened was, from my mom and dad had just died, and all the failed attempts of suicide, there was always other personalities within myself. So
Mm-hmm.
this one particular day when I realized mom and dad were dead, I got the news, and I tried to commit suicide. So the dual personality person came out saying, no, I want to live. And this was Pumpkin. Pumpkin was a militant one who was always dormant, living inside of me anyway. And she's like, no, now it's my time to take advantage. We're tired of you trying to kill yourself. We got a bigger purpose. And I had just had a friend, and I want people, because you never know who you might need in this life.
Mm-hmm.
I had a friend, and I would give him money from time to time, and he seen that I was very depressed, and I went to his house, and he offered me help. So from him offering me help, I went home and I partied by myself, smoking crack by myself.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I got the news on the door. And then when I realized mom and dad was dead, I said, no, I'm going to kill myself. But I walked down to the friend's house. And that's when the dual personality person evolved, named Pumpkin.
Wow.
And he was in the military. So he has seen people go through that post-traumatic stress disorder,
Post-traumatic stress disorder, yes,
Yeah.
PTSD. Mm-hmm.
And he was like, okay, maybe I'm tripping, but I didn't even smoke no drugs. And it was just the dual personality Pumpkin was like, no, we want to live. And that's how she came out. And she existed for 6 years. And I didn't even realize that she existed.
Now, what was fascinating about Pumpkin versus Mary is that you literally, you're going to explain this, you literally had people who didn't know who Mary was.
Yes.
Because they knew Pumpkin, and you had people who knew the other. I'm all, yeah, I know, right?
Pumpkin, right.
Yeah,
Right.
It's now that's so
That's
you
amazing.
was badass. You
I
had
was
a
bad.
badass dual disorder. I mean, you didn't mess
I
around.
was
Okay, you
because I'm
was
gonna
not
tell you.
half-assing with the dual personality disorder.
Right. And people want to sit up and say that it was an alter ego. No, it was not.
No,
He was
you
totally
really were
different.
these people,
Yes, because let me tell you
and you
how
addressed
I
differently.
found
Is
out.
that one of the reasons why in the photo in the back that is part of the
Yes,
book, ladies and
right
gentlemen,
here. This
right
is
there.
Mary Pumpkin.
So walk us through that those nuances of the characteristics and traits of Mary versus Pumpkin, and you had two social function. You had two lifestyles. You had people over here who
Yes.
knew Mary. You had people over here that knew Pumpkin,
And
and
didn't even
neither
know.
one of them recognized the other. That's
No, they
amazing.
did not. And how I found out, two male friends of mine at the time. Let's use this is the street right here. This side knew Pumpkin, this side knew Mary. And they were arguing. No, that's Mary. No, that's Pumpkin. And neither one of them knew I was the same person. They had no idea. It was like I have children, and my children will tell you, they would come up and say, "Oh, you're Pumpkin's kids," and they're like, "We don't know no damn Pumpkin. Don't call me that." Okay. My kids still today get offended by that. All right.
Oh my
And
God.
they had no idea. And in the book, I live in a place called the City. And you might remember during the time in Washington, D.C., we had a killing every week over here. It used to be called Trinidad. It's still called Trinidad. And living in over there, that side knew Pumpkin. And when they realized that I was someone totally different, it was amazing. They were shocked too. I mean, they had no idea. To this day, some people don't know. And that's why I incorporated the MR in my name, because I'm one person. But Mary Pumpkin, that you see back here, she was one person with two different personalities who suffered from addiction and depression, and she was suicidal.
Mhm.
And I think it's very important for the audience to know you can have a dual personality and not even be aware that
Mhm.
you have it.
Mhm. Mhm. That is amazing, and absolutely that is correct. Um, what what did Mary Pumpkin do? When did she manifest? What were the environmental conditions, if you will, when Mary Pumpkin would manifest herself versus Mary?
Okay, when Pumpkin evolved, Pumpkin was like hell with it. See, Mary was the closet addict, and your audience might be able to relate. There was a side of me that did not want anybody to know I was an addict and
Mm,
that I had issues, the glamour side of me.
hmm.
Pumpkin was like, well, let me tell you something. I am an addict, and I don't care what you think about me. This is who it is. You don't know my story. And that's what Pumpkin represented. The side that says, okay, why you have to hide? And the amazing part, Philippe, is most people who hide their drug addiction or their alcohol or any addiction that they have, they, speaking for myself, I did more hiding myself as an addict than when Pumpkin evolved. I didn't have to hide anymore.
Mm.
So I didn't
Okay.
do drugs as much. But the depression still was there.
So Pumpkin didn't necessarily do drugs.
No, not really. She did drugs. She did drugs openly. Like Mary was the sneaky one, sitting in the house and getting high by herself and stuff like that. And Pumpkin was like, "Hey, let's party. Let's party. It is what it is." And she was so militant. She was like, "Hey, bring it on." She that side of her was, and in the picture, if you can see, she was a general. She had an army, and many males protected her.
That is absolutely fascinating because one of the things that you talk about in the book as well is the sugar daddies,
Yes,
uh, and and uh, and I know this is going to sound oxymoronic to some people, but it was a blessing in disguise that
it was.
people, particularly women who are addicted to crack, have to do a lot of things
Sell their
to
soul, sell their body.
to feed that drug, to
Yes.
feed that addiction. You didn't have to do that, which is a blessing.
No, and let me let the audience know I am no better than no one. Um, but ain't no but. However, God is awesome, and having the person when Pumpkin evolved, his name is Sam in the book. Sam was the kind of man that I could turn a pencil into $5. I could turn a broken lighter into $20 because the person who want to get high, hey, you do what you have to do to feed your addiction. And my friend Sam was like, no, I'll take care of you. And he was like my big brother. Now, when my relationship was over with Sam, and he was like, no, you have to find out life on your own, because Sam knew Mary and he didn't want me to be stuck in the dungeon. That was
Mm.
not who I am. So
How old were you when you met Sam?
it was around 39, 40, around those age, after mom and dad died.
Okay, okay.
Right. I mean, he was right there. And when I lived in the city by myself, I didn't have Sam to take care of my addiction no longer. So the manipulative part of me, I would find older people who might need their house clean, or they might have a beer for me or a cigarette. And I didn't have to go and sell my body to them. But you know what? This young lady told me one time, she said, well, sugar daddies is still a form of tricking. And
Mm-hmm.
when she said that, I said, wow, that's deep, because they depended on my friendship, but I depended on them to keep me safe,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
because drugs can change a person. And in the drug world, you have no friends. In the addiction world, you don't have any friends.
Mm-hmm.
So these people who were my sugar daddies, they were not only my sugar daddies to give me money, they were my friends.
And you said that's very powerful, that there are no friends in addiction.
No, it's not.
And it sounds complete when you're in it. It sounds completely opposite. It's like these cats have my back, but they
No,
really don't, because they don't have their backs.
no. And the thing is with, and I'm speaking for the crack cocaine. I've
Mm-hmm.
had people who will offer me crack before they offer me food or
Mm.
money. I could tell them I don't want the drug. I could have told them that, but they were like, "Here, take the drug." I guess they figured I was supposed to. I'm not going to jail for selling no drugs, so
Wow.
just give me the money so I can get me something to eat. And in the drug world, it's not like that. So anybody out there who's even contemplating, thinking that you have friends, oh, that's my buddy. No, you have no friends in drugs.
Wow, that is a beautiful thing. Thank you for sharing that and putting
Yes.
it out there. That is amazing. When uh, did you ever have conversations back and forth between Mary and Pumpkin?
No, they did not exist. She didn't exist. It was, like I said, for at least 6 years. And the amazing part is I didn't even know my name. That person in my life was gone. They didn't have conversations until one day. It was cold, and it's in the book. And Mary, Pumpkin was very depressed. And what happens with depression? And she didn't want to get high anymore. So she was very depressed, and she wanted to commit suicide. And it was on a day that was cold here in Washington, D.C. And that's the day Mary evolved for just a moment to say, wait a minute. She went, and that's when she went to God on her knees, and she was like, no, I'm about to die. And no, you can't die now. But they never interacted with each other.
Wow. Was
And
that
they
the rock?
really didn't know until therapy
I
that
was going to say, was that the rock bottom? When did it hit rock bottom for you?
rock bottom hit when I was in a home with no electricity, no gas, cold water, and no food.
And how old were you when this happened?
It was, you know, I really can't say. I'm gonna say about if it was 6 years, so let's say 46.
Okay, okay. Um,
46. Wow.
walk us, yeah, right. Walk us through that day. Walk us through that time.
It was actually, and it's a fun. It's in the book. It was Mary was getting a check. And Pumpkin, it was Mary's birthday, so it was the first of the month. First of the month, get paid, okay? I knew I was going to get bombed. So Pumpkin, and I was going to get high by myself. So Pumpkin went to the ATM machine, and the ATM machine didn't dispense any money. No money came out. So Pumpkin was like, wait a minute. She went to talk to the cash, the register person, and he swiped the card and he said, ma'am, there is no money in here. Now, it's a blizzard outside at the time. It was very cold, coldest time in DC. And Pumpkin walked to Sam's house, and she could have got high for free, but she didn't want to. Okay. So I walked back home, and it was cold. It was colder in the house than it was outside. And that's when I knew you got a problem. You're getting ready to freeze to death and die in here. And life shouldn't be this way. I didn't have to live that way. I had family. And the next day, you know, I woke up and I went and hung with the family. And that's when the family found out who Pumpkin was. And they was like, no, we don't want Pumpkin. When Mary come back, you can come back, but Pumpkin wasn't welcome. That's a hurting thing. You're still the same person, although you're suffering. They knew I was psycho from a baby. So I was 99 pounds soaking wet at the time, and I was hungry, and I didn't have the support I needed. So I walked back home, and I cried, and I was like, you know, if I spend another night in this place, I'm going to die. And that's when a friend who hadn't seen me in 15 years came and knocked on the window. After I prayed to God and said, Lord, I'm dying. Just take me out. And he knocked on the window and told me that God told him to find me. I had not seen this man, Philippe, in 15 years. He found me, and he took me to this program place called APRA. And that's where I got help. Because I literally I was gone. I was gone.
Wow. 99 pounds.
99 pounds soaking wet. And I posted pictures today of me being 99 pounds with old picture, the 99 pounds, and the new picture. And when I looked at that picture, I was like, God, thank you, because I've been through some things, but I'm still here. I made it. And
Yes,
and that's what the book is about. It's hope. I don't care what a person has been through.
Well, I think it's more than hope. I think it's how.
Oh, okay. Hope. I say help too.
Yeah, it's hope, help, and how. I think because you definitely tell people and show people how you made it out and how they can too. So it's definitely a book of hope and help, but it's also about how. When you came out, how long were you in rehab?
I'm still in rehab.
Oh, I know.
I'm keeping it real. The first time I went in the psychiatric inpatient ward, it was like for 30 days. And then I had to go to a rehab program. But in the psychiatric inpatient places called PIW here in DC, they gave me the tools. I think I stayed in there for about 3 days, and then they sent me somewhere, and then I went to the rehab place. And they gave me the tools, the treatment plan, and started me on medication.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what happened when you got on the medication? How did you feel? Was it like
I didn't take it.
You didn't take it?
I didn't take it. I took the medication while I was in there, and this is another problem that people who have co-occurring disorders feel as though they don't need the medication. The medication is actually what saved my life, but that was down the road. I've been in the psychiatric inpatient ward several times, but living in the city, I had drugs right outside my door. So I could be in the inpatient ward, then come back out, and the drug man right there waiting for me at the door. You tend to take the illegal drugs before you take the prescription drugs.
Fascinating.
So until the last time being in the psychiatric inpatient ward, and the doctor, I wasn't high. I had been clean. And that's when I found out I was suffering from depression and bipolar disorder. And that's when my life changed.
Okay. Okay. And from there, that's when you started doing the book. Now, you also became, what's it called,
A certified peer
a
specialist.
certified peer specialist.
And a
Um,
certified peer specialist here in Washington, D.C., what we do is um, take my lived experiences and my clinical training, and we share our story to help those with mental health and addiction disorders and give them hope. It's a new movement, Philippe, throughout the United States. What they're finding about the certified peer specialists is we can reach the consumers. I don't like calling them consumers. I say clients
mhm.
of behavior health. We can reach the client a lot better in offering advice how to get help and where to
Because
get
you've
help.
been there, done that.
Yes, been
Yeah.
there, done that.
Yeah. Nobody's a better expert on addiction than you.
Right.
Uh,
And my job is to work with, I was on the ACT team here in Washington, D.C. for Catholic
mhm,
University. The
mhm.
organization is called Anchor Mental Health. And being on the ACT team is designed to provide comprehensive treatment to those with serious and persistent behavior health disorders. And
Mhm.
being on the ACT team, it's sad. A lot of them are homeless and they lost hope. And my job being on that team was to say, hey, I don't care. I'm no better than you. I still have issues, but there's hope. Let me work with, going back to the ACT team. On the ACT team, we had the psychiatrists, we had caseworkers, we had the therapists, and a team together. And we would talk about what's the best treatment for the client. And me
Awesome.
being a certified peer specialist, I could give them insight from my lived experience.
Absolutely. Wow.
Yeah.
All right. So, how can people get in contact with you to one, if it's nothing more than to just congratulate you on
Right.
being strong and writing this book and sharing it with the world, and then secondly, if people are out there that are struggling with addiction, how can they get in contact with you? Uh,
Right. Here on my website, www. Memoirs of 2165. I have links where you can get to my email. You can learn more of, it says meet Mr. Johnson, and it also tells you about co-occurring disorders. So you can go to my website. But I wanted to say one thing about my book here. Um, this book is also a workbook, and in the workbook it has different, let me give you an example. It says the portion of this book contains facts to discover and points to ponder, and it's a self-educational workbook that can be used for personal and group discussions. You can use this book for staff development, and what it has is it tells you about co-occurring disorders as well, and it also tells you where you can seek treatment and help. So you can go to the website as well. It's an icon that has this picture, and you can purchase the book from Barnes and Noble, and you can purchase the book from Amazon.
Fantastic. Mr. Johnson, you got to come back because there's more to the
Yes.
story.
You have been wonderful. Thank you so much for
Oh,
this opportunity.
girl, you're amazing. Let me just tell you right now. I told you when I was reading the book, I called you on the phone. I said, you are absolutely awesome. I mean, I am so proud of you
Thank
and
you.
honored by you because it's hard to talk about this. And
It's time to educate and advocate for
yeah,
change.
yeah. And as you said, there's such a stigma, and people also sometimes ask the dumbest ass questions about it because they don't know,
Yes.
and it's it's a hard topic and a hard pill to swallow. But this is what's happening to millions of us,
Of all
you know,
colors
of all colors
and race, creeds.
and races. And I want people to really understand co-occurring disorders. That might be probably as prevalent as just regular depression. I mean, you don't.
Yes.
It's so simple to think about that. Yeah, you might have this and not know it
And not know, yeah.
because it's become a coping mechanism that you've developed unconsciously just to get through with your life, through your life.
And there is hope. And to the audience, you're not alone. It's many people who are suffering.
Yeah.
And go seek professional help. You know, go to don't be ashamed of saying, "Hey, I have a problem." If if I never reached out, and honestly, it was my oldest son who's like, "Mom, go get some help. You know, I love you. Go get some help." My children, all three of my children, have been such an instrument. Um, Even though I left them, they still love me. Your family will come to you when they see you trying. There's
Mm,
help.
good point. My dear M.R. Johnson, thank you for being with me. Stick
Thank you.
around with me in the green room as we sign off, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Philippe Matthews Show After Hours. It has been an amazing journey. Thank you for being with me and tuning in wherever you are around the world. We'll see you next time.